Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on Social Security and public pension offsets. My name is Hank Kim, and I'm the Executive Director and Counsel for the National Conference on Public Employee Retirement Systems. Today's program is part of our Center for Online Learning. The purpose of NCPERS Center for Online Learning is to provide remote continuing education to public pension trustees, staff, and other fiduciaries and stakeholders. In today's webinar, we will begin by covering the two ways in which Americans earn Social Security benefits and how to calculate it. In the second half of this session, we will cover the Windfall Elimination Offset, also known as WEP, and the Government Pension Offset, also known as GPO, for those public employees who are not covered by Social Security through their public sector employment. As always, we encourage you to submit written questions and comments. Written questions and comments may be submitted by using the GoToMeetings dashboard. However, in order to get through the entire presentation, we will hold all questions and comments till the end. We anticipate the prepared portion of today's webinar to last about 1 hour. Additionally, today's presentation and other supporting materials are available in the handout section of the dashboard. So let's begin, and we'll first begin by talking about, will Social Security be there for me? Particularly for millennials, surveys showed there is great skepticism as to whether Social Security will be around in the next 20, 30, 40 years. And I sincerely believe that Social Security will be, and it's because many people mistakenly believe Social Security is a senior citizens issue. That is, for those people who are near or are currently drawing Social Security benefits, that this is an issue for the elderly. And it absolutely is. But what Social Security really is more than that. It is a middle-class, middle-age issue. And what I mean by that is, if Social Security wasn't around, and for the vast majority of us in the middle class who are middle-aged, the prospect of being our parents' primary financial safety net is a very daunting one. And that would we anticipate the same level of lifestyle if we were our parents' primary safety net? And for, I would imagine, most folks who are in the middle class, the answer is absolutely not. That we need Social Security not only because it provides benefits to our parents, but it also really subsidizes the middle class lifestyle we have, because without it, we would be the primary providing benefits to our senior parents. And therefore, it's a much larger political issue than just a senior citizens issue. So coupled with the activism and the voting power of senior citizens, the middle class is very much vested in Social Security. And as a matter of political issue, I think Social Security is going to be around for the foreseeable future. So the real question isn't whether Social Security is going to be around or not. The real question is how is Social Security might change to potentially address the deficit that its actuaries predict. So one of the first things we need to address in this presentation is, how do I qualify for Social Security? First, there are two ways for Americans to earn Social Security. They are based on your own work record, and the other way is to qualify as a dependent spouse on your spouse's work record. So first, we'll talk about how many credits you need in Social Security in order to earn benefits under your own work record. So at a very minimum, you need 40 credits, which is equal to 10 years of Social Security taxed work in order to get a minimum benefit out of Social Security. How do you earn those 40 credits? Well, in 2016, you earn 1 credit for each $1,260 that you earn for covered employment. And to earn the most in a given year, which is 4 credits, you have to earn at least $5,040. So it's $1,260 times 4, which again is $5,040. If in 2016 you earned at least $5,040, then for this calendar year, you've earned 4 Social Security credits. And if you get the minimum amount for the next 10 years, then you will then qualify for Social Security. Then the other way of earning, becoming a beneficiary of Social Security is if as an example, you do not work, but your spouse does, then you are eligible for a dependent spouse's benefit, again, based on your spouse's work record. And your spouse's work record would, again, be under the same formula, that, again, in 2016, you get 1 credit of Social Security for each $1,260 that you earn. So, again, it's based on either your own work record or your dependent's work record. In terms of the relationship between your earnings while you are in the workforce versus the level of benefits that you get in Social Security, there is absolutely a relationship. That is, the higher your income is during your working period, the higher your Social Security benefit will be. However, one of the things about Social Security is that the formula for how to figure out your benefit is weighted in favor of chronically low-wage, underemployed workers, so that the ones who are on the lower end of the salary scale do not fall into poverty when they do retire. So one of the effects of this weighted formula is that if you are chronically or historically a low-wage earner, your Social Security benefits will be lower, but it will be a higher replacement rate than those who are on the medium to higher end of the income scale. So this graph, I think, demonstrates this very well. And what you see is here is an example of an average lifetime earning of, say, someone who earns $20,000 a year, $50,000 a year, and $100,000 a year. Their monthly and annual benefits are reflected just below. And what you see is that the amount of Social Security benefits, both monthly and annually, for those who are on the low end of the economic scale is lower than those who are in the middle or on the higher end of the income scale, but the replacement rate for those on the lower end of the income scale is much higher. So the roughly $12,000 that this hypothetical worker would earn in Social Security when he or she retires replaces about 61% of their income when they do retire, versus a higher income earner whose benefit is roughly around $31,000, but as a result, their income replacement by Social Security is only 31%. And this formula and this weighting is very, very important because it goes to the heart of the windfall elimination provision, which we'll talk about in the second half. So let's talk about how Social Security retirement benefits are figured out. So again, first we said that at a very minimum, you need to have at least 10 years or 40 quarters of earnings to be at least eligible for Social Security. But for most workers, you will have way more than 10 years of work history. And in fact, for a full worker, they will have way more, much more than that. But Social Security, in terms of their formula, will take the highest 35 years of indexed earning. What indexed earning means is that what a worker earned in 1990 needs to be adjusted for 2016 inflation that has occurred over the last 26 years. And so essentially what would happen is, for all the years that you worked, for the years that have been in the past, will get adjusted by inflation, so that's indexed, and you get the highest 35 years of your indexed earnings, and you divide. Then you add it all up, add up the 35 years of indexed earnings, and hopefully it will be a big, fat number. And then you divide that total earned indexed earnings over the 35 years and divide it by 420, which is the number of months in 35 years. And that resulting quotient is called the average index monthly earning, or AIME. And then to that AIME, we apply the following formula. So let's take a hypothetical worker who, just for easy math, we've compiled their earnings for in groups of 5 years. So 1970 to 74, let's say this individual earned $10,000 in each of those 5 years, and then in 75 through 79, in each of those 5 years, this individual earned $20,000 a year, and then in 1980 through 84, again $35,000 in each of those 5 years, and so on and so on, until you have what is 45 years of work record. And when we adjust it for inflation, what we will get is that for the first 10 years, even when we adjust it for inflation, the earnings of this hypothetical employee, the first 10 years is not as high as the last 35 years. And so we will just take the work record from 1980 through 2014 for this individual, which is 35 years. So again, in order to calculate this individual's AIME, we add the highest 35 years of indexed earnings. So because we made the math fairly easy, we just do 75,000 times 35 years. But for your own calculations, or for a real worker, we would literally have to add each year one by one by one until we get 35. And so in this instance, if we added $75,000 per year, 35 times, it comes out to $2,625,000. Then we take this figure and divide it by 420, which is, again, the number of months in 35 years. And the quotient is $6,250, which is this hypothetical individual's average index monthly earnings. So with this, we then apply the Social Security formula for normal retirement age, which is we do 90% of the first $856 of average indexed earnings plus 32% between $556 and $5,157, and then 15% of any remainder up to the FICA tax limit, which is currently $118,500. So let's look at what the Social Security benefit would be for this hypothetical employee or retiree whose average index monthly earnings was $6,250. So we take 90% of the first $856 of AIME, which is $770.40. Then we take 32% of $4,301, which is the difference between the $5,157 and the first $856, and 32% of that is $1,376.32, and then 15% of anything above $5,157, which in this instance was $6,250 minus $5,157, which comes to $1,093. 15% of that is $163.95. So the actual benefit, Social Security benefit of this hypothetical retiree is $2,310.67 per month. Now, that benefit is for normal retirement age. For those of you, since you're all in public pension plans, you're familiar with actuarial reductions for early retirement. And this is the chart that shows the amount that your benefit would be actuarially reduced if you retire prior to your early retirement or prior to your normal retirement age. And so depending upon when you were born, this column shows the normal retirement age. And the earliest age you are eligible for Social Security is age 62, and the percent of reduction if you take early retirement, again, based on the year that you were born. So that covers how Social Security benefits are formulated. Now we're going to go to the second part of our presentation, which is talking about the Windfall Elimination Provision and the Government Pension Offset. So there are roughly about 6.8 million state and local government employees who are not covered by Social Security. That is, their primary employer employment by under state or local government, they do not contribute to Social Security, and they are not accruing Social Security quarters through their primary government employment. However, either through work prior to joining government service or after leaving government service, or maybe taking supplemental employment in covered employment, mostly through private sector jobs, they are getting Social Security benefits. That's the situation where the Windfall Elimination provision would apply. So again, just to reiterate, the Windfall Elimination Provision and the Government Pension Offset affect people with pensions from non-covered government employment. And for the Windfall Elimination Provision, which is the first offset we will talk about, WEP affects benefits on your record as your record of Social Security, and the government pension offset affects benefits that you may receive based on your spouse's work record. And we'll talk about GPO as soon as we're done with WEP. So remember when we talked about the formula that while Social Security is not a welfare program, the formula is intended to benefit those who are on the lower end of the salary spectrum by providing a higher replacement for the first $856 of Social Security earnings. And so the purpose of WEP is to ensure that the 90% of replacement factor does in fact only go towards lifelong low-paid earners. The issue here is that for public employees, their employment record really is not shared with Social Security. And so when Social Security sees a government employee who's not covered by Social Security in their normal full-time government employment, but either, again, through work in the private sector at the beginning, prior to joining public service, or after, or through part-time work, the Social Security record that Social Security Administration sees may make that government employee look like a chronically low-wage, low-income earner. And the purpose of WEP is to ensure that that sort of distorted view gets somehow reconciled. And the way it goes about doing that is, instead of using 90% for the first $856 of AIME, it reduces that to 40% of replacement of the first $856. So let's look at another hypothetical employee who is, in this instance, let's say she is a school teacher, and that prior to being fully employed by a school board that is outside of Social Security, that for the first 10 years, maybe while she was in high school and also when she was in college and over the summers, worked some part-time jobs, but then through the second through the 15 years from 1980 through 1994 was a full-time teacher. And then from 95 through until she retired, started dabbling a little bit more in the private sector. So during her peak career years, maybe she was also raising a family. She really didn't have a chance to do other employment. And so for the middle 15 years, the Social Security shows absolutely no work record. But then as her kids got older and they started leaving the nest, she was able to spend more time in addition to teaching, maybe taking part-time jobs during the summers, and then near the end of her career, maybe retire from teaching and went into the private sector fully. And so when we adjust for inflation on this side, the highest 35 years will include the last 20 years plus the first 10 years, and then 5 years where there's absolutely no work record. So Social Security requires the highest 35 years. If you have no work record, then it will include zeros as part of your highest work work record. So in this instance, we have 10 years at $75,000 because when you adjust 2005 through 2009 at $70,000 with inflation, it comes out to $75,000. Then 5 years at $23,200, 5 years at $12,500, 5 years at $4,500, and then another 5 years at $4,000. When you add all this together, it comes out to $971,000. This is what Social Security sees. It doesn't. Social Security does not have any record of what she earned as a teacher. So you take 971,000 divided by 420, and her adjusted average index monthly earnings is $2,312. So under normal calculations, her Social Security benefit would have been $1,236.32. However, because of the windfall elimination provision, Social Security reduces the 90% replacement with 40%, and instead of the first cohort being at $770.40, it ends up being $342.40 for a total of $808.32 per month. This is what the WEP effect of this retired school teacher's Social Security benefit would be. So again, the policy justification is that because this teacher had all those years of zeros in her calculation for the AIME, it makes it look as if she is one of the low-income people that Social Security is trying to prevent from slipping into poverty. However, what we do know is that, in fact, she was in public service, presumably earning good middle-class income as a teacher, and that she is not a chronically underemployed or low-wage earner. And as a result, that is the policy justification for reducing the 90% return on the first $856 to 40%. Now, there are exceptions to the windfall elimination provision, and it largely depends on the number of years that you actually have recorded earnings. And so if you have 20 years or more of substantial earnings, and we'll talk about what substantial earnings mean momentarily, then for each year above 20 years, the WEP formula, instead of you add 5% to the formula. So if you have 21 years of substantial earnings, instead of taking 40% of the first $856, you will now take 45%. And if you have 22 years, instead of 45, it will be 50. If you have 23, it will be 55, so on and so forth, until if you have 30 or more years, WEP will be gradually phased out, and you will earn your full 90%. So, in fact, in this scenario, this person would not face the WEP reduction because they have 30 years of substantial earnings. And substantial earnings, here's some sampling of what substantial earnings is for a given period. So it's not that much. So in 2016, As long as you earn $22,050, then you have 1 year's worth of substantial earnings. The policy justification for the substantial earnings exception to WEP is, again, we're trying to preserve a minimum level of benefits for those who are chronically low-wage earners. And again, the WEP is there to say that, you know, those in public employment, you're not chronically low-wage earners. And if you are in public service and you have 30 years of substantial earnings, then your earnings really means that, you know, you're not, you know, part of the sort of the chronically underemployed low-wage earners. You're in fact you're earning what you know most middle-class Americans may earn, and therefore you're not artificially depressing your Social Security record by having all those zeros. And so Social Security feels that if you have at least 20 years of substantial earnings, then your Social Security benefit level or earnings record does really reflect you know, your normal status in sort of earning you know, livable wage versus being artificially depressed. These are some arguments for and against WEP. This is really not a webinar about, you know, whether WEP is appropriate or not. I'm just here to tell you what it's about, why the WEP is there, and how to figure it out. So before we go into the government pension offset, which is the other offset that we'll be talking about, we need to understand dual entitlement under Social Security. So as we talked about, Social Security, you can earn Social Security benefits in one of two ways. One is under your own work record, and the other way is to be a dependent spouse under your spouse's work record. And when Social Security was first created in 1935, the typical household was a traditional, I guess what many would consider a traditional household, where there would be a primary breadwinner and a primary parent or a spouse that stayed at home and took care of the house and took care of the children. And in that sort of scenario, being a dependent, you know, getting benefit based on your spouse's work record made total sense. That is, again, back in the 1930s, typically it's the man who went out and earned the income, and the woman stayed at home. And because the woman did not have the opportunity to join the workforce, they, you know, it was right for them to get 50% of their spouse's Social Security work benefit. However, as society changed and more women went into the workforce and the household became dual income households, Social Security said, well, you really can't double dip. You can't get your Social Security benefit and also get 50% of your spouse's benefit because that's unfair. So under Social Security, if both spouses work and both employment are covered by Social Security, both spouses are eligible for spousal benefit, but there is a dollar-for-dollar reduction of spousal benefit offset by the benefit that you earn for your own work record. So if for instance, I earned $1,000 of Social Security benefit, my wife would be eligible for half of that, $500. But if her Social Security benefit on her own work record is $500, she wouldn't be getting $1,000, $500 from mine and $500 from hers. It would be a dollar-for-dollar offset, and so she would only get $500. So how does this apply to government pension offset? So government pension offset affects government retirees who receive their government pension that's not covered by Social Security and a Social Security dependent spousal benefit. And so what government pension offset says is, just because you're getting a government pension and you're not part of Social Security record, shouldn't mean that your scenario, it should be any different than a scenario where both parents are working, but they're both in the private sector. There needs to be an some sort of an offset for your government pension, and the formula is 2/3 of the government of the non-covered government pension. So we're going to use a couple of examples to illustrate what we mean by this. So in household A, we have, again, what we sort of described as sort of mid-1930s traditional household, where the male the husband went to work, and based on his work record, his Social Security benefit is $1,000. The potential dependent spousal benefit on the Social Security is half, which is $500, and the widow or widower benefit is $1,000. So in this scenario, the spouse, Anne, while her husband is still alive, would get half of his benefit, which is $500. And if she should survive her husband, she would get the full spousal benefit of $1,000. Now let's go to household B, where they both work, and he is in the private sector, and she is in the private sector as well. So both of their employment is covered by Social Security, and based on their work records, his Social Security monthly benefit is $1,000, and her Social Security benefit, again based on her work record, is $900. So there is a dollar-for-dollar reduction, and so for her spousal benefit, it would have been half of $1,000, so $500 minus a dollar-for-dollar reduction of her Social Security benefit based on her work record, which is $900. It's far more than her spousal benefit, so she gets zero spousal benefit. The same analysis would apply for her husband. So he would be eligible for $450 of her benefit, half of $900, minus $1,000 based on his Social Security benefit, which again leaves him with zero dependent spousal benefit. If B should outlive her husband, her widow benefit would be $1,000 minus $900, which makes it $100 of widow benefit, and combined with her $900 Social Security benefit, her monthly Social Security benefit would come out to $1,000, which again makes B and Ann equal in terms of widow benefits. Now let's go to Cleo, household C. So again, her husband earns $1,000 in this example, and instead of her getting $900 from Social Security, let's say she again is a teacher, and she earns her teacher pension benefit is $900 a month. So instead of having a dollar-for-dollar reduction under GPO, it's 2/3 of her state pension benefit, which is $600, and you then use $600 as a dollar-for-dollar reduction. So again, she would be eligible for half of his benefit, which is 500, minus 600, which is the GPO formula. And again, her spousal benefit is 0, which makes sense for both B and Cleo because, you know, they both went out into the workforce. They are, by definition, because they're working, not a dependent spouse. They have their own earned income. Now, in terms of widow benefit, she is eligible for the full $1,000 of her husband's Social Security benefit. But in this instance, because the GPO formula is 600, you reduce that by 600, so she would get a widow benefit of $400 in this example, which brings her out, you know, a little bit better than B and Ann, but it's, again, you know, the purpose of the GPO is to make sure that Cleo, B, and Ann roughly end up in the same area, or let me rephrase, Cleo and B roughly end up in the same place because they are really not dependent spouses. I did this household D because generally when I speak to public pensions, many in the audience are male, and so I just wanted to give this explicit example of how the GPO might work in their circumstance. So let's say he is a public safety retiree and draws a pension of $1,200 a month, and his spouse, you know, worked in the private sector. Maybe she was, let's say, a real estate agent, and her Social Security monthly benefit is $1,000. Again, you do the GPO formula of 2/3 of the non-covered retirement system benefit, which in this instance comes out to $800. And again, for Dan, he would be eligible for half of her benefits, which is $500, but minus the dollar-for-dollar reduction of the GPO formula, he gets 0. Again, that makes sense because he's not a dependent spouse. But as a widower, she is eligible for her full Social Security benefits, and but a dollar-for-dollar reduction of the GPO formula, which is $800, and he would get $200 widower benefit. So again, you know, the policy justification for GPO is that it ensures fairness, that we try to treat both B and Cleo as equally as we can. There is one exception to the GPO if in the last 60 months of government employment you pay into Social Security, then you are exempt from the GPO offset. So, you know, I know there are instances where, say, teachers in the school district are not covered by Social Security, but the secretaries or the administrative staff of the school, they are covered by Social Security. So if you know, you do your 30 years of work as a teacher, and then you separate from teaching and then go into, say, the administrative part and pay into Social Security for the last 5 years of your 35 years of work, then and if that admin position is covered by Social Security, then GPO does not apply. Again, arguments for and against, and you know, this is not a presentation on you know, what it's for. So we come to the conclusion, and if you want more information, you know, the Social Security website has wonderful information about WEP and GPO, great resource material, and And you know, I encourage you to take a look at that. So I'm trying to see what questions we asked. Let me try to. I'm having a hard time seeing any of the questions. I apologize. I'm sorry. My question screen won't open up. I apologize. My email address is hank@ncpers.org. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them to me, and you know, I'll respond to it as quickly as I can. So with that, there will be a short 3-question survey. We ask you to take a minute to take the survey, as it informs our future webinar experience. And let me close by again apologizing. I cannot, for whatever reason, I cannot open up my question screen, and so I can't answer any of your questions. But again, I will answer them via email if you send me an email. And thank you again for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next NCPERS Center for Online Learning. Thank you.